everyone. Good morning. I'll be starting up with your history civics, the first chapter. This is Kritika Sachdeva Kapoor, as you all know. I'll be teaching you all history civics. So let's start with the first chapter of our history book, that is the Revolt of 1857, the first war of Indian independence. When we're talking about independence, this was the first and the foremost, you can say, battle or war which has taken place because when we were under the British rule, we were not allowed to revolt anything, but this was the first time when the Indians revolted against the British Empire and the way they were treating the Indians. So let's start the chapter. By 1857, India had completed 100 years of British rule. During the period of Indians were unhappy and resented foreign rule, as the British were oppressive and exploitive. The main objective of the British was to drain Indians' wealth and exploit its resources to the maximum. So when we are talking about 1857, in the year 1857, it was almost 100 years of the British rule, and the people were actually very distressed in the rule, and they were you can say very, they wanted Britishers to go away so that they can live the life as they want. Then their anger and hatred reached its limit on the morning of 11th May, when a group of sepoys rebelled against the British superiors. The outbreak resulted due to the introduction of the Enfield rifles, as the cartridge used by the rifles was greased with the fat of the pigs and cows. For Muslim sepoys means the people who were like soldiers, right? So they had been given certain Enfield rifles. Those rifles were made of the fat of pigs and cows. For Muslims, the fat of pig, to peel it off from the mouth, it was not allowed in their culture. And for Indians, we as Indians, all the Hindus, basically the people we used to, the people of that era also used to worship cow. So it was not allowed to us to open those rifles from the mouth, which were made of the fat of pigs and cows. So they revolted against those things, right? Then during protests, the sepoys killed the British superiors and marched towards the Red Fort in Delhi. So they have killed certain British superiors, the people who were on the head, and they have started marching towards the Red Fort in Delhi. So this was the first revolt, or the first, that is why it was called the first war of Indian independence. Indian independence ka, it was the first war, or the first you can say battle that they have started during 1857. So what are the causes of revolt? We'll study that. First is political cause. When we're talking about political causes, these are the causes which were the outcome of the politics that the Britishers were following. During the 15th to 16th century, the British first entered India as a trading company. The British East India Company took permission from the Mughals and gradually increased its trading activities in India's subcontinent. At the beginning of the 18th century, the Mughal Empire began declining, result with the number of successor states to emerge. The British arrived in India as traders, unlike the Turks who came to India as conquerors. Their main objective was to gain optimum profits from Indian trade. Taking advantage of the decaying political condition prevalent at that time, they decided to seize political power. The British company ruthlessly followed an ideological and military strategy to consolidate and expand the British Empire in India. What now existed was a colonial setup with the British trade connections which transformed into British suzerainty. So when we are talking about the causes of the revolt, it started with the political issues. The Britishers came to India for trading purposes. They have started their trade with Mughals. Now, as the Mughals started declining, they have got a benefit from it. The Britishers have got a benefit from it. They started occupying the states of India so that they can get a maximum of profit. They can use the resources very cheaply from India, and they can provide the finished goods to the Indians at a very high rate. That means they have got a high level of profit, right? So in order to develop the British the Britishers actually they have overexploited the resources of India. Then subsidiary alliance, the policy of subsidiary alliance was one of the major reasons leading to the revolt. This policy was introduced by Lord Wellesley as the Governor General. Lord Wellesley earlier followed the policy of non-intervention when dealing with the priority states. He later adopted the policy of forming subsidiary alliances. Under the subsidiary alliances, an agreement was made with the rulers of these princely states where the British promised to protect them from attacks, in lieu of which the British would receive a payment and additional powers. So these subsidiary states are actually, they have given a contract to the princely states that the princely states will be safe during any of the conquer. कोई भी अगर बाहर का आकर they are conquering that particular state, at that time the Britishers will intervene. They'll take a payment, they'll take a charge from the princely states regularly, and they'll safeguard them. Then doctrine of lapse. Now what is this doctrine of lapse? It is a very important topic, students. Please understand it carefully. Doctrine of lapse. Lord Dalhousie became the Governor General of India in 1846 and declared that the policy of the British government would be acquire more Indian territories and to increase revenue of the empire. Dalhousie acquired Indian territories through his policy of doctrine of lapse, which created a sense of alarm among Indian rulers. The doctrine of lapse stated that if a ruler of the Indian state died without a natural heir to succeed succeed him, then his adopted son could not inherit the throne or the title. In such circumstances, the state would be annexed to British Empire. I'll explain it in very simple form. Doctrine of lapse. Actually, it is a doctrine that was given by Lord Dalhousie. According to this doctrine, the people who do not have their own son, their own natural successor, that person's full territory will be going to the Britishers. That means if I am not having my own son, if I am adopting a person, a baby I am adopting, so that my territory, my things won't be given to him, but it will go straight away to the Britishers. And many of the leaders, you can say the kings and the queens, they were annoyed with this decision, because as you all have studied about Rani Lakshmibai also, she was also having an adopted son, and as her husband passed away, the territory was to be given to the Britishers. That is why she fought for the against the doctrine of lapse. Then the annexation of the states of Jhansi, Nagpur, Sambalpur and other minor states caused resentment among the Indian rulers and people against the British period after Britishers. The Indian considered the British policy of doctrine of lapse to be unlawful and deceitful method of acquiring territory. People were understanding this thing, that the doctrine of lapse was actually very disadvantageous to them. And along with that, the people knew that by this only the Britishers want to acquire the territories in a very easy way. Then annexation of Awadh. In 1856, the British government deposed the Nawab of Awadh, Wajid Ali Shah, on grounds of maladministration. The Nawab of Awadh had signed numerous treaties with the British and was loyal to the British government. The British dethroned the Nawab and exiled him to Calcutta. Nawab was annexed and exploited economically. The exile of Nawab caused deep resentment not only among the people of Awadh, but Indian sepoys recruited in Indian Company's army, as most of them belonged to Awadh. Now, the Nawab of Awadh, he was very loyal to British government, but rather than giving him that positivity back, Britishers, what they did was they have unko blame kiya. They blamed the Nawab of Awadh that he was basically not doing good administrative work, and because of that maladministration, he was annexed. He was forced to run away to Calcutta. Then disrespect to Nana Sahib. Nana Sahib was born as Dhundu Pant. He was adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II. In 1851, Peshwa Bajirao II passed away, bequeathing his vast property to Nana Sahib. On the death of ex-Peshwa, the pension granted to him was abolished, and claims of his adopted son, Nana Sahib, was disregarded. So, as you all have studied about the adopted this thing, given by Lord Dalhousie, the doctrine of lapse. He was not allowed to get his father's the territory. That is why they also got against the British rules. Disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah Zafar, the Mughal emperor. Bahadur Shah Zafar was last Mughal emperor who ruled for 20 years from 1837 to 1857. Under the British, he was considered a titular head. In 1849, Lord Dalhousie announced that the successor of Bahadur Shah would not be permitted to use Red Fort as a palace. They were ordered to shift to a place near Qutub Minar. In 1856, Lord Canning announced that after death of Mughal emperor, his successor would not be permitted to use imperial titles and dignities to the names. Bahadur Shah remained under the protection of the East India Company and received a pension. To the common, especially the Muslims, Bahadur Shah was still their emperor and the symbol of power and grandeur. The disrespect shown by the British enraged them. Zeenat Mahal, wife of Bahadur Shah, began to conspire against the British after this decision. So, Bahadur Shah Zafar, he was the last Mughal king, and after that, what happened? The Britishers, they have started, they have started the conspiracies against the Mughal rulers. They have started, first of all, they have said that you'll not be using Red Fort, you'll be shifting to a place near Qutub Minar. Then after that, they have also told the Mughal emperor that your son won't be getting all the dignities and everything. So Bahadur Shah's wife, she started conspirating, and she started telling people that how bad was the British government.